There are many types of intelligence. But when we think of intelligence, we typically think of our ability to perform verbal or logical reasoning, the type of skills that we measure in IQ tests. But intelligence can be much more than that. Particularly, there's a type of intelligence that we can all agree that is quite useful in our everyday lives. I'm talking about social intelligence. People with high levels of social intelligence are usually very good at communicating with others and in noticing and even anticipating the other people's intentions and emotional states. They are quite good at empathy and in putting themselves in the perspective of others. They are good team players and nice people to be around with. My job is to make robots more socially intelligent. Robots are becoming part of our lives, although not always in the forms that we picture from science fiction. But because these machines are operating and assisting us in environments that are inherently social, they need social intelligence too. Let me start by giving you a concrete example. This is iCat, a robotic chess companion for kids. When you begin learning how to play chess, the more you play, the faster you learn, up to a certain level. So together with a number of colleagues, we wanted to investigate how we could use robots to help kids become motivated and wanting to play chess more. So we programmed this robot with the ability to play chess and provide feedback on children's moves throughout the game through facial emotional expressions. And from what I told you so far, I guess you must be wondering by now that the hardest part of this project was not to program the robot with the ability to play chess at the level of an 8-year-old beginner child. In the initial experiments that we conducted with the iCat in schools and chess clubs, we found that the robot's emotional behavior was in fact helping children gain a better understanding of the chess game. So our setup was quite promising. However, in a long-term study where the same group of kids played chess with this robot over 5 weeks, we started noticing that children started losing interest into the robot after a couple of weeks. This happened because they realized that their own behavior and affective state was not having any impact on the robot's own behavior. The robot was simply responding to the moves on the chessboard. For example, there were cases where the iCat had a clear advantage in the game, and it started getting happier and happier, even if the child was a little bit frustrated about it. In a nutshell, our robot was missing one of the key aspects of social intelligence: empathy. So to address this, we started working on an effect recognition system that would enable the robot to detect in real time the affective state of the child and use this information not only to provide emotional responses more in tune with the affective state of the player, but also to provide at certain moments supportive behaviors that would make children shift from a negative to a positive affective state if that was necessary. A new repeated interaction study with this improved version, empathetic version of the iCat showed that children indeed became more motivated into playing chess over time when compared to the version of the robot without empathetic capabilities. This is just one simple example of how a social competency can be added to technology in order to be more effective in achieving our goal. In this case, was to keep children motivated to play chess. So why do we need to build socially intelligent machines? There are still many computational challenges. Let me give you just an example of one of these challenges that I've been working for quite a while now. The typical human-machine interaction paradigm is to have one machine and one person, or the user, We tend to sit alone in our computers, or when we interact with our phones, we forget about the social world around us. But robots are a very special type of device because they are situated in our social world. And even the ones that don't look human-like at all, they evoke in you a sense of social presence. And so when we deploy these robots in social environments around people, it's not uncommon to see more than one person around the robot at the same time. And in a not-so-distant future, we can also envision to have more than one robot added to the group. So one of the challenges that we have when we have robots interacting in real-world social environments is that we cannot really anticipate how many people will be around the robot at the same time. This is challenging for us robot programmers, not only because there are many situations that we need to account for, but also, and most importantly, because the way we behave when we are in a group is very different than the way we behave when we are interacting with just one person or one machine. One of the projects that I've worked at Yale University before joining KTH was showing exactly this. Our goal was to build a system that would detect automatically whether children were engaged or disengaged while they were receiving some educational intervention from these two little social robots. When we started looking at the data that we collected with these robots in schools, we noticed that, in fact, the way children behaved when they were alone with the robots was very different than the way they were when they were in a group. For example, if children were alone with a robot, when they were engaged, they were making eye contact with the robots almost 100% of the time. And when they started looking away, that was a clear sign that they were disengaged from the task. However, when children were interacting in a group setting, quite often, when they looked away from the robots, they were addressing their colleagues to discuss something related to the task itself. So it didn't necessarily mean that they were disengaged with the robots. So the way a robot needs to interpret a glance to the side is different depending on the social context that the robot is experiencing in that moment. And this is difficult because the same algorithms that we develop, in this case, we need to detect disengagement, for example, and work for one social context, might not work for all the other contexts that we might encounter. So, robots today are still struggle with understanding all these different social cues that we humans can give to them even without thinking. This is just one of the challenges that we are facing in this area that I worked on, social robotics. But progress is happening quite fast. And let me stop here by saying that I'm not arguing that all robots need to be social, but instead, there's a special place for socially intelligent robots in our future society. Advances are being made and are driven by economic and demographic trends. For example, here in Sweden, 25% of our population is above 65 years old. Like in many developing countries, as life expectancy is increasing, people also wish to live longer independently in their homes. Socially intelligent robots can enable older adults to live longer in their homes independently, acting as cognitive assistants or providing help with physical tasks. Another example where robots are expected to play a key role in our future society is in personalizing education. In the next 5 years, Sweden is expecting almost 1 million new immigrants. These immigrants are often families, and their children are being integrated in our public schools. These children quite often have different learning paces, not only because they are coming from a different educational system, but also because they probably don't master the language spoken by their teacher or by their new colleagues. So here, socially intelligent robots can complement teachers by providing personalized instruction to these children so that they are able to keep up with the learning content that they need. Or by acting as language learning companions. In fact, studies have shown that the physical presence of a robot plays a very important role on how students can recall information. For example, when compared with exactly the same content being delivered by a virtual character on a screen. So there's a great potential for social robots to be employed in educational domains. Finally, we will see more and more robots assisting us in workplaces, either by collaborating with workers in assembly lines or carrying things around hospitals so that nurses and other staff can have more free time to provide the necessary support to patients. Even when the main purpose of the robot is non-social, if these robots will be operating in environments surrounded by people, they will need to be socially intelligent. Today, robots still struggle with things that we people can do without almost any effort, like the ability to understand when someone is actively listening to us, or the ability to intervene at the right moment in a group conversation. So even though there are already many examples of commercial robots in factories or even exploring other planets, we don't see many robots around us yet, and when we do, their functionality is still quite limited. In order to change this, we need robots that are not only good at what they do and useful, but also that are socially aware and can take into account the needs and intentions of people around them. Robots need to go from an individualistic to a collectivistic mindset, like socially intelligent people do. The goal of many social robotics researchers, myself included, is to build and evaluate systems that enable robots to capture, respond to, and learn from these subtle social dynamics, these complex real-world situations. The better robots will be at understanding human social behavior, and the better they will be at expressing their own intentions to people. In other words, the more socially intelligent they are, the more natural and effective will be the communication between these robots and people. And therefore, the better they will be at assisting us in a variety of domains. I believe this is the power of socially intelligent robots. Thank you.